Hello, 3D design class. This is Mr. Drylowitz with some more demonstrations for you for our new project. So right now we are looking at creating shapes three-dimensionally. I know we did basic shapes earlier where we just kind of sketched them out and we did our city street. Now we're looking at actually making these shapes look three-dimensional with shadowing because we want to create some depth with the shadows. So I have got these fancy little styrofoam or whatever you want to call them shapes here for us to work with. And over the course of this week, we'll be doing 4 different shapes. So we've got the cylinder, we've got a sphere, we've got a cube, and we've got a pyramid. You guys can work on these throughout the week at your own pace. I'm going to show you all 4 right now. So again, you're doing the same process as before. You've got your horizon line, you've got your vanishing point. Now, to make things easier on yourselves, I'm not hating here if you cheat with some stencils, okay? If you need a stencil, go right ahead, all right? I would also recommend not working gigantic on this paper because we're going to be using the same one throughout the week. We're kind of establish a light source. And that is a big thing I want to talk about here is establishing a light source. So because my light is right here, I'm going to use that as my official light source. And as you notice, when you're holding a shape and you've got a light source, when the light moves, it changes where the shadows lie. So right now, the shadow's kind of on the right side here, with the top left being the brightest and the bottom kind of being the midground. But if I change the direction of my lighting, all of a sudden, this is sort of the midground, this is the darkest, and this is the lightest. So it kind of changes up all depending on where you move your light source around to, or if you change the direction of your shape, in proportion to the light source. So, what I'm going to start off with is a cube. So I'm going to, like I said, use my stencil here just to make it a little bit easier on myself. Just kind of go quicker. And I'm establishing my light source as up here. Yay, happy little sun. Alright, so I'm doing my square. And again, these corners are all going to my vanishing point. So going from bottom corner to vanishing point, and I'm doing all these things lightly because these lines are getting erased later. I'm going from my middle corner to my vanishing point, and I'm going from the top corner to my vanishing point. So unlike last time where I had you guys keep the lines, we're going to be erasing the lines this time. So one of 2 things can happen here. Either A, if you have got a stencil, line it up over the shape and just back it up a little bit. Make sure the corner lines up to that middle line. That way all you're doing is going directly parallel to your line going up and your line going across. We've got a cube. And then I'm just erasing anything beneath it, that falls outside of the cube. And obviously you can always go back in and clean this up as needed, but that's why I recommend doing that lightly. So now using this cube as my example right now for my light source, so I'm going to look at that. Kind of next to it, I'm looking at the right side is the darkest, the bottom is kind of the medium, and the top is, actually, I guess, trying to change the light source a little bit. Let me move that a bit. Yeah, so the front is the lightest, the left is the darkest, the bottom is kind of the medium. All right, so that is where, over here, I'm just going to dig in with my pencil, all right? And neatness does count, so you don't want to see, pencil lines shooting all over the place. So one thing I would always recommend is maybe just kind of outlining, for those people who you might not feel like illustration is your strongest area, kind of outline the perimeter of the shape first. And so what this is basically just pressure control. How hard are you pressing down? So for the side that is the most shadowed, that is where you're pressing down the heaviest. For the side that is medium, that's being the bottom here, you're just going to go a bit lighter. So I'm not pressing down as heavy this time. And I'm trying to keep it even. That's the thing. I don't want to have darker spots and lighter spots at the same time. I'm trying to keep it as even as possible here. So you notice I'm even holding my pencil differently, and I've got my hand down for support. Might make it a little bit darker. You know, and that's what's nice, is like, it's always easier to go from lighter to darker than from darker to lighter. Because then if I want to make that lighter, I have to erase it. With this one, I can just press a little bit heavier and make the shadow a bit deeper there. And then now the front of my square, that's where I can just press very lightly and work my way across it, all right? Again, go from whatever direction you want. I'm not going to hold you to having to be going in one direction only. So if you need to go across, left and right, up and down, up to you. All right? Okay, so I have got my square up there. Cube. Now I'm going to move on to the tougher one. That is going to be the sphere. It's no longer just a circle. So I'm going to bring it a little bit further away. I'm not worrying about a vanishing point this time or any lines because we'll do that for the cylinder. But again, I've got my circle here, and what I'm looking at is that it is very bright on the left side, very dark on the right side. And so I'm going to kind of make just a curved line, almost like a half moon to start with, but a very, very light half moon because the shadow is going to be on this side. And again, if you need to use a stencil for that to help out, then go ahead. And notice I'm pressing super light here. You know, it's barely noticeable. All right, and so what I'm going to start doing is I'm pressing heavier along the edge. Now what I'm actually doing, now it's sort of more of an advanced technique if you're feeling up to it, is I leave the edge a little bit of a rim. It's called rim lighting because it's a round object. The light would be kind of curving around the back side of the tube, so there might be a tiny bit there. If you're feeling up to the challenge, try to leave that a little bit lighter on that end. If you're not, don't worry about it. So I'm kind of going heavy just for like this strip here. So I'm really pressing down in those parts. And again, if you need to move your paper around, that is fine. No rule against changing the direction you're working on. So with this one, I do kind of want to work up towards my light source. Just for me personally, it'll be a little easier. So I've got one section I made dark. Now I'm just going to start working very lightly over the rest. You know, up to my moon shape. Now, I'm not doing this with the expectation that everybody's going to be expert at this. So I'm not expecting expert level shadowing. I'm expecting your best effort. That's all I'm looking for here. All right, so kind of did my medium. Now, between these two, there is definitely a division of light and dark. So that's where I just kind of want to break that up now. So I'm going to press a little bit heavier. You know, where the two meet, but not as heavy as the darkest part and not as light as the part I was working on. You see, it's starting to blend a little bit now. I'm making sure I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm not going up to the entire shape there. And I'm just going to keep getting a little bit lighter as I work my way up there. You know, and you're always going to see problem areas where you're like, oh yeah, I really got to dig into that a bit more, or I have to, you know, go a little lighter there. And so then as I get up here, I realize, okay, it really has to be a little bit more up there to kind of too much division to where it's pure white and to where my light shadows are. All right. See, I'm very gently, and I'm doing just small movements, very small, controlled pencil movements. Then I can always go in and erase a little bit if I need to in some spots. So at this point, I'm just kind of going over what I need to. I'll even very lightly go over that spot at the edge that I did for like the rim, like I said, because it should be not as dark as the darkest area. For those, you know, feeling bold here. Alright, so that is our sphere. this up, curve it a little bit more up here. And again, you can always go in and erase a little bit if you need to. Gently erase. You don't want to take out everything you did. Alright, so I've got my sphere there, which is a three-dimensional circle. Then we'll move on to a pyramid. Alright, so pyramid's a bit trickier now. Just trying to think how I want to draw that one. So that one's a bit tougher. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make the edge of a triangle over here. And again, if you've got a stencil, feel free to use it. But now I'm lower down from my light source than I was before. Alright, and this is also where I can just lightly do that. Actually, to make it easier on yourselves, I mean, if you want to make multi-sided pyramid, that is fine. If you want to just keep it as all you're seeing is two sides, that is fine as well. Giving you guys that option. The one thing you do have to make sure is wherever you make this line, your back line, it can't be facing a different direction. It has to be almost perfectly parallel. You bring it back to that initial line. And that's what I did there. And then just erase what I have going back. And again, these eraser lines you can always go back and do at any point just to clean them up. So now if I'm looking at this one, this will be my lighter side, this will be my darker side, because let's just say I've got my light source up there again, and you kind of see it a little bit there. I mean, actually what I could do, sorry, is I want to make it more like the one I'm using. Sorry for changing my mind mid-demonstration here. I'm sure you're all so surprised by that. Yeah, so this would be the one where I'm just pressing lighter. And sometimes when I'm like in the middle of what I'm doing, I'm sort of like circling my pencils. I feel like a little circular movement fills it in nicely. Again, you may think differently, and that is fine, because whatever style works, you know. Pretty much any style that you like is okay, as long as it doesn't make it hard to tell what you're trying to be doing, so that the objective becomes, you know, unclear, or if it's just, you know, incredibly technically wrong. And then the darker part would be the front, the face of my triangle. And again, like I said, carefully, you know, small movements when you get to those corners, but I would carefully go around, again, the perimeter of the triangle first, or the face first. So I got one more shape after this, and then the video is done. And this is the darkest part of it, it's away from my light source up there in the corner. Oh, sorry. Drag everything over again. I did notice I have a little spot going out. The OCD in me is not going to allow that to stand. Alright, and so last will be our cylinder. So that will be done a little bit more like our sphere was. So what I could do this time around is use, yeah, so I've got my circle here. But this time you do have to make some lines going back to the vanishing point. But what's tricky with circles is you have to line this up right. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll put my pencil in my vanishing point and I make it as like kind of a hinge. Because my ruler has to line up to that vanishing point, and I'm seeing I'm drawing it closer and closer to that circle, and the second it touches, that's where your line goes. like right there. Same thing on this side. You kind of keep that lined up, Use your pencil being to as a hinge, and the second it touches, it can't be in, it can't be away from, like there's no coming up and curving down. That looks terrible. So that is what we want there. So again, it can't be in like this area coming back. That's not going to look right. Then all I do is take my circle that I already used, bring it back a little bit. Actually, I could do a smaller circle if I want to really get to the idea of this is going to be a cylinder, because it would be smaller the further away you get from the viewer. Sorry, light source. I mean, the same size wouldn't be incorrect, but this sort of drives the point home of what you're doing. And I made my lines a little too dark going back to the vanishing point, but here's what it is. All right, so I've got my cylinder here. Now, if I'm holding my cylinder up in the same sort of position, if I look at that, I can see the shadowing is more on the other side. But there is also, actually, the light source a bit higher. You can see where it's lighter over here and darker over here, and the front is also pretty light. That's the light source kind of higher up. I should change the angle on that bit. All right, cool. All right, so you kind of see what I'm going to do here. The darkest part's going to be down here. All right, so at the bottom, that's where I'm going to really make it its darkest. I'm going to come up with it a little bit, and I want to kind of stick with the angle of the vanishing lines to the vanishing point, maybe very lightly. And just know, like, that's where I'm pressing down the darkest. You know, trace the perimeter a little bit first. Maybe I would draw myself another section going back to there. If you want a ruler for that, that's fine. I'm so beyond rulers at this point. That's where I go a little bit lighter. You see I'm kind of blending over where the two meet. Again, pencil control. I don't want to be pressing too hard, you know, like I was doing here. So I'm just doing enough, pressing down a little bit if I need to. And then maybe I do another section up here that goes even lighter. Sometimes when I do that, that's where I hold further back on the pencil. And I'll probably have to go in and erase a little bit. Yeah, it's looking a little too similar to the last section I did. The goal here is to not be able to see that there are sections. That's kind of the idea here. They kind of flow very nicely from one shade to the next, like a value scale, which you've probably done if you've taken other art classes. You know, Mr. Gutterman, Miss Paradise, or even, you know, elementary, middle school. Yes, I'm probably just going to erase over that a little bit. Touch it up again a little bit, you know, super lightly. Right, so I'm liking that, and in the front, that's where it won't be, you know, because the light source is kind of near it, it's not far away, it would be super dark. So this would be kind of a medium shade going around it, and obviously it's not going to be like the sphere, we're only doing a portion of it, because this side of it is actually flat, as opposed to up here where it is three-dimensional. This is a flat side. And so, yeah, try to understand how the lighting works and how shadows work on different surfaces when you're looking at these, because we will eventually be getting into doing more custom shapes with all different sides and trying to put shadows and highlights on those, all right? So it's just something to be prepared for as we move forward. And again, remember, feel free to turn your paper. It doesn't have to sit in one spot the whole time. You know, you turn the paper, you don't have to turn your body. Like, I've seen people get into very awkward positions trying to work on an illustration or a project sometimes, thinking that they can't just turn their paper around. right, so those are our four shapes: our cube, our sphere, our pyramid, and our cylinder. That's what we're doing this week. So you've got your whole week to create these, because I do want to see a level of just being careful with them, of of detail, of just putting a lot of effort into these. Okay, so I'm not expecting you to knock out one per day. We've got Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Fridays when you're submitting all four of them. So you've got 3 classes to create 4 of these, and you've got 5 days basically, because they would be due late Friday at some point. All right, so good luck. Obviously, if you need any help, hit me up on email me, or I just said hit me up. I'm like a teenager. So yeah, contact me through email or Google Meet if you need anything, and yeah, I look forward to seeing what you create.